So let's talk NIL. And I want to go back to 10 years ago, 2014, which was the tail end of our era. Um, you had the Final Four. It was at the Final Four where UConn standout Shabazz Napier, he was being questioned in the interview, and it came up where he mentioned there would be nights where he would go to bed hungry because he wouldn't have enough money to buy food as a student athlete. And then that's when they were talking about, well, should student athletes be paid? And while we were in school during that time, I remember doing a survey and they were asking us, should college athletes be paid? So this has been on the table a long time before it was actually implemented. So I want to ask you, were there nights that you went to bed hungry as an athlete at MSU?
I think that's so funny. First, let me just say, I think that was, I don't know if that was a strategic move or if that was just a moment of vulnerability for Shabazz, but I'm glad that he made the comment on that, used his platform
Mm-hmm.
to shed light on a real issue in college athletics. Now, in my experience, no, I did not go to bed hungry, but I will say that just like any other college student, we did struggle. Just
Mm-hmm.
because we were athletes, people assume, oh yeah, they taking care of y'all, da da da. But I remember having a car note that I needed to pay for. I remember having groceries that need to be bought, especially when we moved into those apartments. It was kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
this ain't it. Now we did have a meal plan.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we had flex dollars where you could go eat at like the Chick-fil-A that was on campus, Starbucks,
Burger
Subway, that kind
King.
of
Yeah.
thing, if you didn't want the cafeteria food, but that was limited.
Mm-hmm.
So you had to use wisdom, and sometimes you had to just kind of be like, you can't be one of them people that be like, man, I ain't eating that cafeteria food. Well, if you were hungry, you were
Mm-hmm.
gonna eat in the cafeteria. And they had some pretty good options, or they had several options for you to choose from. It may not have been the most ideal thing. So I could see how an athlete like himself or any other athlete that may be a lot more picky about what they eat to be able to say, man, I'm hungry. I ran out of flex dollars because it's easy to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see where you can run out of a meal plan, but I may not want to go to the caf. I may not like the food that's there. Think about it, he was a black guy in the northern part of America.
Connecticut. Yeah.
So maybe the food in Connecticut wasn't hitting like it was in Mississippi. But I could definitely see how not having enough for maybe groceries, with the pedigree or the level of play that UConn was playing on, they probably was working out hard, and too tired to go to the grocery store, too tired to walk to the calf in the snow, So I might go back to my room and all I have is noodles. And that's not gonna cut it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I get it. That wasn't necessarily my experience, but I could definitely see how that could be several others for sure.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny because he also said in that same interview he didn't think that student athletes should be making thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And look at where we are. I think he was trying to be humble too, because when athletes said we should be making money, people got mad at us because they would say your scholarship, you are being paid, but there were things that weren't covered,
Yeah.
like you just discussed, by that scholarship. So the flex dollars, we had teammates that ran out a lot because
Yeah.
people like eating fast food. They
Mhm.
didn't really care for the cafeteria food,
Mhm.
or depending on the time you got out of study hall or
Yeah.
tutoring, it may be too late to go to the caf, so you have to go to the dining hall, a Burger King or somewhere. So they
Yeah.
ran out fairly quickly. I know my freshman year, I was on campus. If you stayed in a dorm, you got fewer flex dollars than
Yeah.
somebody living off campus because it's like, okay, you're going to get more meals than the flex dollars. And once I
Mhm.
moved off campus, I'm like, okay, I have more money for the flex dollars. But it's like once you get home, you're not trying to go back to campus, so you need to have some groceries in your apartment. So it's
Right.
like that's the money we got. It wasn't enough. It
Because
really.
because you think about, I'm sorry to cut
Go
in, think
ahead.
about the amount that they gave us to pay for our rent. And so whatever was left from that, you had to
You
buy
had the
groceries there.
toiletries, essentials, everything you needed. You know what I'm saying? Hey, gotta get your hair
And
done.
think about some of the kids, or some of our teammates, or even like ourselves, who had to pay for bills. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so you got your rent check, and then you may have had to pay, I can't remember at our apartment, was it cable that we had to pay for, or internet, or trash, water, lights? But not just that, what about your bills at home? Like maybe your parents said, I ain't paying for your phone bill. Because we had that experience with some teammates who had
Yeah.
to pay their own phone bill, or some people who had to send money back home to support their family back home. So no, it wasn't enough.
Yeah. Gas money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So pretty much because you were living off, I know I was eligible for my Pell Grant. And we would look forward to that. We would get a
yeah,
certain amount each semester. That
yeah,
would help. Um, and then we would get the per diem when we, like during the Christmas holidays, we would be
yeah.
traveling, everything would be closed. So you would get a little money then.
I
I
remember
was
that.
looking forward to that. And we would get money after the games. Once we got into conference play, like
Yep.
you remember our freshman and sophomore years, Joy would come around with that envelope with the money. I think it was $15 after every
Yep.
game. He'll
Yep.
come like, I used to look forward to that because once we got into conference play, we had a game on Thursday and Sunday. So,
Mhm.
and this is how broke we were. Like, I know athletes listening now, they probably say, okay, $15 twice a week, that's $30. Add that up, maybe $120 for the whole month. But I was looking forward to that little money. I was stacking
Yeah,
it up. You know what I'm
I
saying?
was too.
So,
Get something cheap, say the
that's
rest.
what I'm saying. So, when Schaefer came, we stopped getting money. They chose to give us meals, but if I'm thinking back correctly, we would get meals and money. Cause I remember we would get some food and still get money under Fanning, but I guess they spent more money on food under Schaefer. Something changed. So I
Yeah.
was a little mad because I'm like, I don't really care for no meal. I want my money. Go and give me what you gonna give me in my hand, baby. You messed up my bread. I'll eat when we get back to campus or something. Like, I want my money. So
That's
it
real.
was a lot of stipulations. It was a lot of things we couldn't do, like extra benefits. For the longest, we couldn't have food in the locker rooms. You remember, because that was
Oh,
considered an extra
yeah.
benefit. So I think after Shabazz made that comment, the following year, which was your grad year, I think they started being able to have like granola bars and stuff in
Yeah.
the locker room. So it
Fruit
was
tables,
right.
yogurt.
It
That's
was very
crazy.
strict.
I forgot about that. And you know what? Like you said, like any athlete listening now probably would be shell shocked to learn that we couldn't even have food. They couldn't even
Right.
feed us. We couldn't even stock the refrigerator with Gatorade and certain food items without it being illegal. That's crazy.
Crazy girl. That's because one time I was late to practice because I didn't have enough time. I was so hungry because classes would be back to back. I had an 8, 9, 10, 11. Then we had to be on the court at 12:45. I got to catch the bus. Look, I said, I need to get me a sandwich or something. I'm not going to make it. And I looked the bus. I came in. Coach Akins was looking like I said, "Look, I couldn't do it today. I don't know if he made us run or made me run." I said, "Whatever you need me to do, I'll do it. I just couldn't do it today." I used to try to
I
get
remember that.
get a little muscle milk or something, man. Now I was starving before practice because the class it wasn't enough time.
It wasn't.
So,
You're right.
and I don't know if they've changed it now for athletes or if the
I
schedules are
don't know.
still jam packed. But I know now they get stipends. Don't they get like monthly stipends and stuff like that?
I guess depending on what school you're at, but I forget what it's called. It's like an NIL fund.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
A collect. Don't they, it's like a collective. Every school has like a collective or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah. So it's not NIL, but it's something that they're able to give to athletes to help kind of alleviate some of those costs. I hope they do get a little more. I feel like the average coach practices on the women's side at like that 12, 1 o'clock, probably that 1 o'clock time frame. So
Mm-hmm.
I hope that these kids, they probably got an 8 o'clock. I hope they at least get an hour. Because you got to think about it, you still got to go get treatment, before
Yes.
practice. Then you got to be on the court at a certain time to stretch, get some shots up. Like, you didn't have time to eat. I remember that.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was tough,
Especially
man.
Tuesdays and Thursdays when you had that 9:30, they
Nine
ended
thirty.
at 11. That's some hour
Uh,
and a half classes.
9:30 till 45. Next class at
Yep.
11. Yeah. Then you get out of that class at 12:15, and you want me to
12:15.
be on the court by 12:45 stretching? What?
And I ain't been to treatment. I ain't had lunch, and I still got to catch the bus to shuttle all the way across to campus to get to the hump.
Man,
The facility, yep.
it
And
was
then
tough.
after that, you got a mandatory study hall because you got to get so many hours a week. Then you got to get to the training table over at the Templeton before it closes, or you might have a weight session or you might have an individual session. It was a lot. It was a
Hmm.
lot.
So it's probably like the athletes before us, they had it tougher. It got a little better with us. And we kind of paved the way. We endured the struggles. So the athletes now are living nicely, luxuriously.
Ooh-wee.
So I need for them to understand that they
Yeah,
really got it made. They really got it good.
yeah. It wasn't always so sweet, baby.
It wasn't. I'm thankful, I'm thankful that I was able to come out of school
Debt
without any
free.
student loan debt,
Amen.
have 2 degrees without any student loan debt. Uh, but it would have been nice to not have that student loan debt and be sitting on some bread like they sitting
I
on. You
feel
feel?
you. I feel you.
I ain't mad at. I love it for them. I'm happy for them. I've always been pro. Athletes being paid
Yeah.
or compensated
Compensated. Mhm.
through NIL, but now we can talk about the cons of it because it has gotten out of hand.
Yeah, it has. And I can tell you from a friend of mine who's coaching, she's a recruiting coordinator at the college level. But just to hear some of the stories, it's like it's hard to get kids to come to your school, especially if you're not a Power Four, Power Five school, where the NIL money it doesn't necessarily exist. So these kids have this delusional
Mm-hmm.
mindset. I'm a little better than what I think. And so I think I'm going to come to this mid-major school and get these tens of thousands of dollars when that's not even in their collective,
Mm-hmm.
or they don't have those type of sponsorships or connections, or it's less about my talent, is more about how much can you give me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That's the kind of mindset that college coaches are now having to deal with, is this entitlement, this how can I secure my future financially
Mm-hmm.
versus how can I contribute to this university, how can I leave here with a degree debt free, and give my best effort without it having being tied to what can I get out of it. I'm not saying it's not important to, if they're gonna milk the cow, you may as well get something out of it too. But your first approach can't be how much y'all gonna pay me. Oh, y'all not paying me enough. Let me go here. What about the love of the game? You know what I'm saying? What
Mm-hmm.
about respecting the game, not the money that can come from it? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I feel like the NCAA, because they're so far behind, or they were so far behind in allowing athletes being able to benefit from their name, image, and likeness, they kind of rolled out the red carpet. And they've been
Yeah,
so loose. Like with us, they were like the parents, the strict parents. And now with these new student athletes, they like the grandparents, laid back, do what you want to do, run all over
yeah,
the house, have your way. I mean, so we talked about now there's no signing of national letters of intent. Um, the transfer portal. When we would transfer, you would have to sit out a year. And if you transferred in the same conference, you had to sit out 2 years. Now there's no limits to it. So now there's no dedication, no loyalty. Now I get it. You go somewhere, your coach that recruited you leaves, you should be able to leave and go somewhere else. Or if it doesn't work out that first year, okay, you can leave. But I feel like they should put something in place where you bouncing around from school to school, like, I don't understand why that had to change with NIL. Um, as far as, you know what I mean, players being able to go here and there and just bounce around. Like, I feel like after that first transfer, maybe they should put something in place. You see what I'm saying?
No, I do see what you're saying. I was thinking, how did it get to that point? But
I
I
don't know
think
either.
I think part of it has to do with, that big wave about mental health, right?
Hmm.
Caring for the mental health of our athletes. I think that kind of was what helped prompt the removal of the limitations of, what I'm saying, whether or not somebody can jump from school to school. Because like you mentioned, hey, the coach that recruited me is gone. Or maybe my freshman year, I struggle with my mental health. I'm too far from home. Or maybe this coach was abusive, or
Hmm. Hmm.
verbally abusive, or just kind of affected someone's mental health, because we throw that around. I don't want to say loosely, because I do want to respect that. But I think part of the NCAA's approach to allowing the looseness stemmed in part from the mental health crisis, so to speak. And I think part of that came from COVID. A lot of people struggle with their mental health, and you think about the years that kids are able to get back from COVID, even now to the point, like you mentioned, no longer having to sign an NLI. You remember your letter of intent used to have you there for 4 years. And then even while we were there in school, I think it started moving to a year by year basis.
Uh-huh.
So now coaches can let you go after 1 year. It just can't be performance based, if I'm not mistaken. But it's also gotten to the point where now I've been told that you can go from a junior college to a university and stay there for 4 years, not the 2 years, not two JUCO and then 2 at the university. It's 2 JUCO and then 4 at the university.
So you get 6 years now.
Yeah, I'm like,
Yeah.
man, these kids can leave with a master's degree. All these, and then, but you think about how does that impact high school? Like now, I'm not getting recruited out of high school. Now you need to go to a JUCO in order to get to the Power 5 or get to Division 1 level or wherever. You know what I'm saying? Like, or now there's no need for AAU. Like, what's the point? I'm going from high school to JUCO and from JUCO to that university.
I like the fact that NIL has put people in a better position financially.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people's lives have changed dramatically. Like even if they don't make it to the pros, like they're good.
Yeah.
We're talking about generational wealth.
Flage.
Hey, listen, I love Flage, man.
Yeah, me
Listen,
too.
but she's been really smart about it, smart and strategic. At 20, she just purchased 20 acres. She's 21 now, I think, but at 20 years old, she bought 20 acres. At 20 years old, we was trying to stack that little $15 after every game, trying to make that Pell Grant money stretch.
Yep.
So that's a beautiful thing. Who else? You saw the #1 recruit just signed in basketball. He just signed to BYU. I think he's gonna make upwards of $7 million. They're gonna pay him.
Whoa.
So even if because everybody's like, why is he going to BYU? I think he played high school ball in Utah, and they wanted to keep him there. So it's like he's gonna make a whole lot of money just in college playing at BYU.
A black kid?
Black.
Wow.
Yes.
In Utah?
Girl, I know. That's what everybody like.
How y'all get up there? His daddy must be in the pros, played for the Jazz or some organization.
Yes. So it's different now because when we were coming out of school, you were looking at, okay, does this school have my program that I want or the field that I want to study? Can my family get to the game? Is this a good environment for me? Do I feel like I fit the system? All of these things. And I don't know if players are really evaluating that or if they're just going to the highest bidder. On one hand, it's like, okay, like you said, get your money because the NCAA been making money for all these years. But at the same time, we got to have some substance. We got to have some order and some organization to it.
Boundaries.
And some boundaries. And I hope that people are guiding these players and these athletes in the best way. So yeah, it's
the
crazy.
thing about it though is like everybody is not getting these opportunities. Everybody don't get the 7 million. Everybody don't get the 100K. Everybody don't get the 10K. It's gonna be several athletes, that don't get a lot of minutes that I do have to live off my refund. You know what I'm saying? Or I do have to live off of this stipend from the collective or whatever. I do have to still utilize my meal plan. So I think that's the majority actually.
Yeah.
Athletes, because a lot of these universities can't support.
Yeah.
Just like these colleges can't pay coaches' salaries. You think about Dion. He was at Jackson State, and then even at Colorado, it's like they're having to find a way to come up with the money to pay for these coaches. So what makes you think that they can support several high-profile athletes? So it's few and far between of the ones that are actually going to be, the big money stars. So I think a lot of these upcoming recruits need to have a reality check. Someone needs to be having these conversations about, hey, you might be the big fish at such and such high school, but sweetheart, you're not going to average 17 points a game here. It might be 7, but that's not going to be enough to get you 10K, in NIL money. So you need to be wise about where you go. Don't let it be because of where you can potentially get money, because you might not even perform up to that level, especially if you're a freshman. It's
Mm-hmm.
just something to think about.
Yeah, and I know they have that pending the litigation on the table where they're pretty much going to implement a revenue sharing model amongst the Power Four, because I don't even think it's a Power Five anymore. I think it's the
Mm.
SEC, ACC, Big 12, and the
Big Ten.
Big 10. Because a lot of those Pac 12 schools like
Just,
USC and UCLA are now in the Big 10.
yeah.
So they're going to pay them a salary, and I think they'll still be able to make NIL money. So they're trying to regulate it that way. But I don't know how much that will help, because even though I could get a salary from the school, I still, if they're offering me more NIL money over here, I may want to jump and go over there. Um, I don't know what can be done to try to help it at this point. I know football is out of hand.
Mm.
Men's basketball, as I watch games, I'm like, okay, I didn't even know he left this school. He's over here. I'm not seeing it as much. Football is, they're moving. Basketball, they're moving. On the women's side,
They moving.
they're moving too. But I will say this: I haven't seen where I've seen where it's been more beneficial than it's
Mm.
been like, why did
Yeah.
you do that? So Deja Kelly, who left North Carolina and went to Oregon, I don't understand the move she made when you look at the basketball standpoint. Now, maybe more money in Oregon. You know, they have the Nike headquarters over there, but UNC
North
is
Carolina
it's a
is
Jordan
Jordan.
brand. It's
Yeah.
Jordan brand. And they're a ranked team. So North Carolina is still good even without her. So they were good with her. So I'm just trying to understand, was it a basketball decision? Why did you leave a team that was really built around you? You were the woman there. It was your team. To go to Oregon, and they're just okay. You
Or the
know,
Haley Van Lift that left Louisville to go to LSU,
LSU.
where it still didn't fit. And now you're at TCU. No, granted, she's killing
Yep.
because she's that kind of,
That style of play,
big-ish.
that Big
You
12.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah, big. She was
Yeah.
with the ACC. Big, yeah, ACC. Louisville's the ACC. I think they
Yeah.
were Big 10. They used to be. Were they
They
Big
were
10 there before?
ACC.
Yeah, I'm saying okay, but that style of play, and that, again, it was her. It was her team,
Mm-hmm.
and it was built around her, and they still did well without her last season. But with her, they would have been that much better. So I think she
That's
was just ring chasing at that point. You know, LSU had just won,
But
and
she wasn't far off. They
you
were
could have
think
won with
about
your
when
team.
was she did they make it to the Elite Eight the year her last year at Louisville? They made it far because I remember them beating Texas. I remember that being a thing in the
Hmm.
line. Her and somebody had gotten into it. But even so, it's like, y'all, it's Louisville.
Yeah.
Like, y'all gonna get some high caliber players. You're gonna be well coached. And it just didn't work out, unfortunately, at LSU for her. I thought that was an odd fit uh
Yeah.
anyway. But yeah, like to your point, I don't know on the women's side why some of the moves that are being made. Like even the girl from the thick girl, she has an African name from Maryland. She left there and ended up like at Virginia, and then something happened and she never got a chance to play. I don't remember her, but she was cold. She was nice.
Hmm.
Um, I don't want to mispronounce by saying her last name wrong, but that's just one of those instances where, like, man, if you had just stayed put, if we could kind of get in these kids' heads to just endure, it's gonna be hard. Even after your freshman year is supposed to be hard. Now, if you still got the blues after your sophomore year, okay, let's
Hmm.
consider something else. But
Hmm.
you got to give it a little bit more than a
Give it to
year. Give
him.
it at least a year in the summer, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Well, I want to go back to Haley because I'm glad she left and I'm glad she bounced back, because I respect Kim Mulkey. She's a great coach, Hall of Famer. But in my opinion, she should have never, like, she struggled all season, but that game against Iowa, she should have never been the primary defender on Clark. Like, she got her exposed badly. Like, if you don't want to go with Flau'jae because you need her scoring, you could at least put last tier Poa on her because she was a great defender. But to not give Caitlin your best and just put Haley on her, and Haley was looking like, well, what do you want me to do? you know what I'm saying? As a coach, you're
Yeah.
supposed to disguise a player's weaknesses and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
so she needed to go somewhere else, and now her draft stock is back up. So I'm happy she's bounced back the same
Yeah.
way Raven Johnson bounced back after that championship game against Caitlin Clark. You remember she
Oh,
was
yeah.
sagging on her, and she waved
Carolina.
her off. The next year, her shot got better. They won the national championship. So I love to see the resilience in these players and how
Yeah,
they can bounce back because they can easily fold after something like that on a stage like that.
for sure.
Um, who
And
else?
while I'm thinking about it, the young lady I was talking about from Maryland, Ashley Owusu.
I'm not
I may be
familiar
saying
with.
her name wrong, but she was so tough at Maryland, man. I think I think she played with Angel, maybe, when she was there. I could be wrong, but she was tough, like point guard. She reminded me of Aqua with her build and her skill set. But she ended up, like I said, transferring to like Virginia Tech, and it didn't work out where the NCAA was like against it or something. Right now, I want to say she's at Penn State, kind of having to start all over. But that was one of them situations where a transfer situation didn't work out how it
Hmm.
should have. But if she had stayed, she would have had a great career.
Yeah. So I'm looking at some other good instances. Is Gilbert at LSU? She's a guard. She transferred from Arizona. She's at LSU. She's
Now,
looking good with them.
the other girl at LSU that came from DePaul, she
Oh,
tough.
Anissa Morrow.
Is that Morrow?
Yeah, she came from DePaul.
Yeah, man.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That was a
She
good one.
yeah,
That was a
that
good
was
move.
good. Uh it worked out for, of course, Angel Reese was
Yeah.
transferring in there. And then who else? So you look at Kiki Area Finn. I don't know why she left Stanford because they have a nice sophomore over there. I can't think of
Well, I
her,
think
the
part of it
left-handed girl.
was the conference change. I think
Yeah.
that was mentioned in an article. They moved to some conference that now require them to like fly way across the country
Then the ACC.
often.
Stanford is
Yeah,
in the ACC.
yeah.
ACC.
Yeah, I think that she just didn't want to do all that. That was too much.
Yeah, but it has worked out. She is meshing well with USC, and they needed
Juju.
a yeah, her Juju. I think she wanted to play with Juju too. Uh, but I was just thinking about they had some pieces at Stanford, but I now that you say that, that makes sense. Um, from Texas A&M, Janiyah Barker, she transferred to UCLA, and UCLA they've been looking really good. You know they're the number one team and they're undefeated. But why are you looking like that? You don't think?
Because they haven't played anybody outside of South Carolina. I looked at their schedule and I'm just like not impressed. Even since they've played South Carolina, it's I just wonder what they'll look like when they get to conference play or when they get to the NCAA tournament. I'm not hating. I'm
Mm-hmm. I
just
got you. I
saying,
got you.
like, I was talking to my brother last night. He been talking about, oh, Tennessee, they back. I'm like, yes, they got a good coach. But I looked at their schedule. They haven't played anybody. So you think about your non-conference schedule.
Mm-hmm.
They did beat Iowa. I want to say like one or two or something, but that's the only ranked opponent that they've played. And they've,
Who,
beat
Tennessee?
everybody else. Yeah, University of Tennessee.
Well, they beat Iowa, they beat Florida State. They weren't ranked, but they do have the leading scorer in women's D1 on Florida State's
But
team.
Brittany, if you haven't played anybody, you think about the gauntlet that is now it's been the SEC, but even more now the SEC with Texas and addition of Oklahoma. You feeling it's going to be a battle every night. Even the
Yeah.
worst SEC team is going
Mm-hmm.
to give you a run for your money because it's the
Yeah.
SEC.
I'm with you, but Tennessee does look good. They are a dangerous team, and I do expect
Now
them to. Yeah,
you
but if
playing
you look,
Colgate.
you so silly. But no, like when you watch them play, though, they're good.
I
They're
believe
really
it.
good.
I believe that they're good. I do. I just wish they would have played some more tough opponents to prepare them for what they're about to get in the
Okay,
SEC.
in their defense, Texas is we're going to talk about Texas, but their strength of schedule isn't good. LSU's strength of schedule isn't good. The only team, South Carolina, last year they had a great strength of schedule. This year, it's
It's
still
not
pretty
the
good because
same.
they played, and I respect them because they pretty much played what they had last year. They were the team with the 6'7" post player, with the guards who can create their own shot and shoot the three, which is what UCLA has, and that's how they beat them with the inside out game. And
Yeah.
then South Carolina just played bad, and UCLA had a heck of a game shooting. Um, they played TCU, who had something similar. They beat them. Uh, Well, they have Van Lift and they have Sedona Prince now. Sedona Prince 6'7".
Okay, okay, 1.5 or 2,
Uh,
but
they got a nice team, but they don't have a bench, and they didn't show up in that game. So for me, when I was like, okay, seeing Haley against how they played against South Carolina, I was like, I thought they was a little bit more legit. I was like, I don't know. Notre Dame strength of schedule, they got the number one strength of schedule. They played the toughest
they're
schedule of
good.
anybody.
They're
They are.
good.
USC has played a tough strength of schedule. Uh, but UCLA is good. When you look at their guards, they can shoot. Kiki Rice. Last year, I was like, they weren't really like that. But this year, I think they're really like that. We'll
We'll
see.
see.
You're right. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. But I know we kind of went off a little bit. So let's talk about some of the pros of NIL. Do you have, besides what we've already said, how it has put players in a better financial situation, pretty much has changed some lives?
I think that's the only benefit that I can see. When that it changes your life, it also changes your family's life and maybe the startup of generational wealth for a family. But I mean, what else? I don't know what else the benefit is.
Well, I'll say this. One of the things I'm thinking about when I think back to former student athletes that we were on campus with, like Duranye Wilson, Chris Smith, and I think about their situations. If NIL, because they just missed it. Well, Duranye, Chris was with us, but Duranye was a little younger. How things would have been different for them. I honestly feel like if NIL was around, they probably still be with us. Because, in the piece I wrote back in 2020, I was talking about how a lot of guys, they go to school and they put everything into making it to the league. And when they don't make it, they have to go home or go back home to these small towns, these urban communities where there isn't much opportunity.
Yeah,
It's a lot of hate, it's a lot of jealousy, it's a lot of pain in there. And now you're in there with everybody else. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, and they don't have the degrees that they can really use. They just major in something. There's like, okay, I'm just doing this because I'm gonna make it pro. Yeah, and they go back home and they fall victim to their environments, and that happened to them. So I just think about how NIL is possibly saving some lives
yeah,
because that may have been the situation for some other guys who now have money in their pockets and they don't have to go back home. They can go back home and visit. Now I got some money. I can go live over here. I can go start my business. I can invest in this. You see what I'm saying?
yeah.
So I look at that. Some lives have been saved for sure.
Amen. I agree. I agree. That's a great perspective. I didn't think about it that way, but yeah, yeah, that's great. That's great.
Yeah. And then even, I think, and I don't know, I know Mississippi State and other schools implemented programs to help students. Now they have to with the financial literacy component. Now that student athletes are making money, um, to help them because we know you play in a sport, but it's like, are we prepared for life
Right.
after college with these
Mhm.
jobs? So I think now you have people focusing on becoming entrepreneurs or looking into other opportunities or, you know, different majors. Because we had, even the females like would major in things that they couldn't really use and went back home or working jobs that, you know what I'm saying? It's like you could have worked without having a degree. So now,
What was the major at Mississippi State that you feel like all the all the female athletes were taking?
was it okay? Hold up. I think for the men, the guys, it was pedagogy or kinesiology,
That's
or
what it
they would
was
just
for the girls too.
was it
Kinesiology. Man,
what?
was so many kines majors at Mississippi State.
Okay, I thought it was
Kinesiology
something
or
that was like
psychology.
psychology. Yeah, psychology.
Mhm. But go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt. I just
No,
thought that was
no,
interesting.
you're
I
good.
wonder what it is at other schools. Like, what is it that academic advisors or athletic academic advisors tend to put kids in just to keep them eligible? Something that they can do, but like it's not really benefiting them in the long run.
No disrespect, because I know you're really passionate about teaching. So it's teaching and coaching. Because most of the time
Oh
it was
yeah,
like you can always just go teach and go coach if it don't work out. And you were
yeah.
like, I hate that they had that mindset because you really you
Hmm.
got to be built to be a
You
teacher,
do,
to be an educator.
you do.
Um, and nowadays, like even Don Staley, with Joyce Edwards, the freshman that came in. I think she wanted to major in engineering and they didn't have that
Yeah,
program. So she created that for her. So
I
now
remember that.
schools can possibly create majors. If they really want you, they want to keep you, we can
Hmm.
create a program for you. And I don't know now with the rule change with junior college, you can be there 2 years, then so 6 years, but everybody's not cut out for that much school. So I'm thinking it could possibly get to the point where they implement trades at 4 year colleges. So
Wow.
look, and it
Wow. That
listen,
would be dope.
that would be dope. So the first 2 years, you do your coursework. Your last, well, most people, the guys, they're staying in school 3 years. The women now, if you turn 21, say for basketball, the year to draft, you can go. So that's really 3 years. So if I do 2 years of coursework, that last year is an externship. I'm pretty much getting work experience. So as a student athlete, I think it's still, you can't do more than 20 hours. So you can do 20 hours at a job, getting real world work experience. So if I want to be a barber, if I want to do hair, nail tech, welding, whatever,
Yeah.
I'm getting real life
Plumbing.
work
Yeah.
experience. Right,
Electrician. Yeah.
right. Because AI ain't taking away those jobs. We need
So
people in those professions. So that would be really dope. So now there's no more school for you. You're getting work experience, and then you're going to practice doing what you need to do, and you're doing that every day.
that's a great perspective, Britt. Wow. You need to be, well, I will say you need to be at a university, but you already
You're
are.
already. Maybe I'm not in the right capacity. I need to switch my
Hey,
roles, girl.
you know what? That's not a bad idea. That's not
Yeah,
a bad idea at all.
yeah, for sure.
Hmm.